Howdy, howdy. It's a Sunday morning stream, Trusty 8 podcast. Just finished doing one over at Patreon. I'll probably drop a little bit later. If you're interested in hearing me ramble on, as per usual, I wanted to, we're going to do some watch later videos, but I wanted to read this article from Reuters I found on Twitter here. Oh, and it's going to redirect me to another tab. I'll just read it to you. You can find it if you want to. Twitter prohibits users from promoting accounts on Facebook and Mastodon. I don't know what Mastodon is. Twitter on Sunday said that it will remove accounts created solely for the purpose of promoting other social platforms and content that contains links or usernames. The move would impact content from social media platforms like Meta, Facebook, and Instagram, along with Mastodon, Truth Social, Bible, Nostr, and Post. I've never heard of any of those, except for Truth Social. I know what that is. While allowing cross-content posting, Twitter support said in a tweet. So I'm confused. Does this mean we can't support, promote our podcast on here anymore? And here's the tweet itself. Here, change my screen so you can see the tab I'm looking at. Up. Here it is. Twitter support says, we still allow cross-posting content from any social media platform. Posting links or usernames to social media platforms not listed above are also not in violation of this policy. More information on this policy, as well as how we will take action on violations, can be found here. They have a little help desk link. Short video platform TikTok, owned by China's ByteDance Ltd., was not included in the list. Last week, Twitter disbanded its Trust and Safety Council, a volunteer group formed in 2016 to advise the social media platform on site decisions. The policy change follows other chaotic actions at Twitter since Elon Musk, who is also the CEO of Tesla, if you didn't know, bought the social network. He fired top management and laid off about half of its workforce while seesawing on how much to charge for Twitter's subscription service, Twitter Blue. Musk also suspended the accounts of several journalists over a controversy on publishing public data about the billionaire's plane. Musk reinstated the accounts after criticism from government officials, advocacy groups, and journalism organizations from several parts of the globe on Friday, with some saying the microblogging platform was jeopardizing press freedom. I heard a little bit of this on, was it Ranting Monkey's show? They said they actually had posted public information about his location, like real-time location, and I think there was some kind of feigned attack or something that happened. I haven't really read too deeply into that, but here's the journalist. Let's listen to him.
Evening with people reaching out on Instagram and email and texting saying, it was kind of a flood of messages, which sort of surprises me that people were, that on top of my Twitter account, but saying, hey, your account's been suspended. And, my first reaction was kind of like, must be some sort of technical error or, am I being trolled? What's going on here?
Oh, great, man. Surprise, surprise. So that was that. So I'm a little confused. I want to find out more about whether or not we're going to be allowed to. It sounds like they're allowing us to continue to share our YouTube contents and Patreon and stuff like that. It's just more that they don't want things saying, "Oh yeah, go check us out over here," and that's all it is. Which is pretty much the majority of my Twitter posts. It's most of what I use Twitter for, or I retweet good stuff. That's about it. I don't really tweet much. Oh. Well, we're going to go to watch later, but Apostle Queen Balemzi is live, so we'll start there and work our way around the board.
Egypt, you don't know nobody in that place, but stay there until I tell you to return. Do not come back to visit.
Oh, she's
Do
so
not
loud.
come back to do anything. Just stay there until I tell you to stay there. In this case, at least, the angel told him the enemy was Herod, right? There are some of you, God has not revealed who the enemy is. God has not told you who the Herod is. So you are not sure why God is moving you like this, why God is hiding you, like why God is saying, do this or stay here or do that. You
Well, Herod was Herod. It's not a metaphor.
don't even understand because God is not telling you anything. It's not in every case that God will tell you. Some cases, He's not going to tell you anything. He's just going to try to hide you. Even coming to this ministry,
Why? He's gonna hide you? Why would he hide you? He's all powerful. Why is it? He's not gonna tell you anything. He's just gonna hide you? Like what? What are we talking about? God is hiding you to save you? I don't.
of you, maybe you would have died. But God brought you here so you can get a major deliverance of something they afflicted you with that was supposed to kill you. And God says, stay here. Stay connected here. Stay connected here. But in your mind, you're like, why should I stay here? Why can't I go to this other ministry? Stay here.
Oh, okay. So it's not. It's about staying with the ministry. It's not about. Yeah, I've heard a lot of this in my personal life recently from somebody up close to who's connected to some churches. They get the same thing. Like this person's like, if you're going to go to church, X amount of days a week, you should come to this church every time. She's like, well, I go to 2 or 3 different churches. I like what they do over here on Thursdays, and I like what you do over here on Sundays. Why can't I go to both? But they're like, no. You need to be at my ministry, and just only my ministry. Yeah.
Stay here. Because this is where I will give you your deliverance.
Oh, will
This
you?
is where I will teach you everything that you need to know about what's happening in your life.
Surely.
Stay here. I'm hiding you here. There's a strong covering here. There's a strong protection here. The anointing here is powerful. Stay here.
Well, yeah, look at her. She's got the angels, the lions. Of course, you're protected.
And the moment the enemy tries to snatch you away, he kills you. Remember when they were attacking Patrick?
No.
When I was praying
remember
for him
Patrick.
and there was a manifestation, the demon
Oh, she must have prayed the demons out of one of her congregants here.
said, we are trying to disconnect him from you so we can kill him. Now, God had told him to stay there. And he was saying every time he tries to disconnect, God brings him back. Because it's a place that God came to hide him. They say, we want to disconnect him from you so we can kill him. Meaning, as long as he's connected, they cannot kill him because he stayed in obedience because God himself told him to stay here.
This always kills me because it's like, the enemy's trying to kill you. And I'm like, what good does it... This is the same thing with the government's trying to kill you. It doesn't do them any good to kill you now. I mean, maybe in the spiritual realm or something, yeah, they just want souls in hell. But like right now, they want more people to convert to Satanism or whatever it is, right? Like, so you need a living person. You wouldn't want to kill that person. You'd want them to be alive to preach the gospel of Satan.
So God is hiding him there to save him. So now you would think you're doing the woman of God a favor by coming to watch her, not knowing you're doing yourself a favor. I don't even
No, I'm not trying to do you any favors.
know if you guys understand what I'm saying. God told you stay here. And we saw a deliverance. They said we want to disconnect him so we can kill him. But as long as he's hiding in this place, we can't kill him. But the moment we disconnect him, we'll finish him.
Okay.
This ministry, God showed me the tree one time in the spirit.
You know who else is probably live? Let's go see. I think Randolph should be live right now. If they're... Maybe they might be taking some time off. Okay, I don't see it here. Let's check my notifications. If not... Yeah, I think Randolph Richardson usually does his thing on Sunday mornings, but I don't see anything right now. So he may be taking the holiday season off or something. All right, we'll go to the watch later list. Boom. Ooh, that one looks good too. Myth Vision's doing cognitive dissonance explains Christianity. Love it. I've got a lot of new ones from Apostle Queen Balemzi in here, so I've actually added several. So how many unavailable videos are hidden? Yeah, I'll figure. I'm up to 108 again. See, my watch later list is growing. But we did already review some of these in my last stream with Godless Sewing. Okay, let's see what this 9-hour video here. We're an hour into it, where we stopped last time. So let's get some lulls. Love it. Ultimated Judeo-Christian, always good for the lulls.
Because he has in the Bible, every person he has spoken to, he has made known that he is God.
No. Every person he has made known that he is God has he made known with no uncertain terms. You don't know how many individuals in the Bible are actually not God, but are not described as God, but are still God. So, in other words, God could be anyone that you encounter at any time, meaning I am God.
That's true, actually. I've heard that interpretation, that God just speaks through random people, and you really never know when it's him and when it's a deceiver, which is a weird way to do it if you're God.
No, because God doesn't lie. The Bible states this as well.
That God doesn't lie. Well, why do you think that the Bible describes God? The only premise you have are these two things, that God is all truthful, right?
And it really doesn't matter if God doesn't lie if you don't know who God is, right? Because you can interpret anybody as being God. Anybody who tells the truth is God? Like, what? How is that? How does it follow?
Or that God is all loving, or whatever the fuck it is. And he's some stupid dichotomy about being everything or something.
Because God authorized.
To correct you, actually, God is nothing. God is not everything. God is nothing. God exists outside of existence. So he would not be a thing, right? According to Jill, God does not actually exist because he has a special existence.
Authorize the Bible as the first sentence of
authorize the Bible.
Because the first 5 words of the Bible references his lovingness. In the beginning, God created. Creation is an expression of love.
Can you remind me who is cited as the author of the Bible, by the way?
There are many authors, but for my arguments, I'm referencing Moses. So Genesis 1:1 is my argument.
Right, so actually God did not write the Bible.
I didn't.
As far as I know, Moses never actually wrote anything. Like they've proven that Moses never wrote anything that's in the Bible. Pretty sure.
Say that he authorized the authors to write down their.
If in fact he ever existed.
So God had communication with Moses, and obviously he would have made it known to Moses that the first sentence is perfect. Genesis 1:1.
You know, it's very convenient that only a few select people have spoken to God and have gotten the authorization to write down their experiences, and you will just have to take their word for it, I guess.
No, a lot of people write down their experiences about God. There's just a plethora of books written by like random Christian authors, right? And they tend to get published fairly easily because somebody will be like, oh yeah, you know, and they'll get the church funds to help them publish and stuff like that and push the book in the church. But you've never heard of them because they're all just obscure, nobodies. Like,
yes, because Genesis 1:1 and the main themes of the Bible are consistent throughout all versions. So Genesis 1:1 is my argument for premise 2, that God authorized biblicalism for evidentialism / epistemic foundationalism for fallen humans to cross-reference information / sin before receiving heavenly happiness. So this is agape theism. God's love is referenced within the first 5 words of Genesis 1:1, the first sentence of the Bible. So we know with absolute certainty that our biblical God exists.
He just says he created the heavens and the earth. I mean, BibleGateway.com. Referencing. You can't see it. It's on my phone. I just want to make sure because I always get these ones mixed up. I always feel like it starts out with the void, but it says that afterwards. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. The Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. This is the NIV version. It's slightly different than the KJV. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light was good. He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning. There was the first day. So he hasn't even created people yet. How is that an act of love? How does that... He just made a thing, and then he made night and day, there's some water and some earth and some sunlight. That's an act of love. 1 through 5.
That's why God wanted to make sure that he is referenced
No,
perfectly.
you only
within the
you
first
only know
sentence.
you only know with 100% certainty that God exists as described in the Bible. You don't know that God exists beyond what is described in the Bible.
Hang on, that's premise
So,
one.
in
You're
other words,
switching the subject
God
now.
God is only
But your premise doesn't logically follow from the text you quoted at all.
what
It
you
says
can
nothing
find in the
about
Bible.
love.
No.
He is not anything else
We know God exists, and we know more precisely.
in the Bible. Yes.
No, we know more precisely our biblical God exists through the Bible. So obviously,
Yeah, no, dude,
babies would know that God exists before reading
No.
the Bible.
No.
Yes,
No.
as God is
No.
God is love.
No.
God is love. So he would reveal himself to
That's
everybody.
fucking ridiculous.
God doesn't want
It's
people
funny,
to
dude.
God doesn't want people to perish. So obviously he would reveal himself to everybody so that nobody is without excuse. Romans 1:20.
Uh-huh.
For since the creation of
Uh-huh.
the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made. As a result, people are without excuse. So you are without excuse as God has revealed himself to
How will I
us.
know him?
You already know God exists.
Mm-mm. No. Just because you keep saying it over and over again does not make it so.
How?
Through sacred theology.
How?
What?
Through divine
Concretely,
revelation.
how?
Divine revelation.
Oh my goodness.
What does that entail?
The knowledge of God.
And how does that
The
express
knowledge of God proves that he
Through-
exists. Right.
Sacred theology.
My knowledge of Harry Potter proves that he exists. I don't even like Harry Potter. It's a terrible reference. My knowledge of Pinhead tells me that demons exist.
And how does that express itself?
Through God.
And how does that manifest itself?
And as what manifests itself?
The knowledge of God, sir.
No, how does God manifest himself so that people can know him?
Through his invisible attributes. So it's been
Which are?
which would be he is an immaterial God. So information is
So he
immaterial.
can't manifest
Oh,
himself.
fuck.
Yes, I said information is immaterial. So we know default that
Information is immaterial, but the minds that carry and process the information are material.
within our souls that God
Why,
exists.
why then try to answer the question if it can't be answered?
I've answered your questions through sacred theology.
No.
You could get a THD or a PhD in sacred theology.
Manifestation is
What
physical.
Christian university
It
did you go
is
to?
something you can
It
see
doesn't
or touch.
have to be physical. That would be
Yes, it does. That would entail manifestation. An expression would be something that you cannot see, touch, or smell. Right?
It doesn't have to be physical, a manifestation.
It does.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. So information is immaterial.
No.
God is immaterial. So all facts references God as he is ultimate truthful love. So we
That's some Darth Dawkins shit right there.
presuppose him for facts. A presupposition is revelatory. So God is our presupposition. In other words, our reference point, our absolute starting point, our default point for knowledge. So you just have to accept that. You are not God.
Nothing. It
and
means
God-
nothing.
It does.
No, it doesn't, and I don't have to accept it. Like his interlocutor is right on point.
Absolute nothingness is impossible by definition. So only God can be the source for. It's not by definition.
There is no meaning. Pancakes. There is no meaning.
You just presuppose God. You're presupposing God to make that
Don't
claim.
interrupt, Ultimate. Don't interrupt. Pancakes talking.
No, he wasn't. So there's a claim here.
You gonna
Absolute
lag?
nothingness is impossible.
It's an
definitionally.
ultimate circular argument.
It doesn't matter. A is A. God is an ultimate fact, and an ultimate fact is God. God.
It does matter. Circular reasoning is invalid. That's not a legitimate. I mean, if you like basic ass logic says you can't make an argument where the premise is the same as the conclusion.
What is absolute?
Yeah,
eternal,
dude.
and
I'm sorry,
regulatory?
but you're kind of retarded when
I'm
you
not
say that.
saying
I
now
just have
you're
to say that.
no.
Yeah.
That's not.
I'm sorry, but
I don't appreciate me using the hard R
kind of
word,
retarded.
but
Listen,
you know,
I'm
whatever.
I'm gonna
It's
leave now
fine.
because
I hear a lot of people.
I
do
can't.
this.
This is too fucking dumb for me.
It's
I'm
not?
sorry.
That was. And then so I'll address the next. So somebody made a claim. I can't remember if it was him. So absolute nothingness is impossible by definition. So the only alternative for our existence is an eternal mind. So only God
What?
can be eternal. So to be eternal requires an all-powerful mind choosing to sustain themselves, not subjected to disorder/entropy. Absoluteness means a consciousness because free will is independent through the law and spiritual law of cause and effect. Also, all-knowingness indicates oneness and timelessness to know all events. So that's onto.
Wait. So I want to go back to that. He said it chooses to sustain itself, right? So it could choose not to sustain itself. God could choose to not exist, but he doesn't. Which doesn't really make any sense if you're eternal, right? I mean, it makes sense if you're all powerful, but if you're eternal, you can't choose to not be eternal. Right? So which is it?
Theology. So premise 1, biblically/awesomely God exists. Responses? So any one of ye can respond to premise 1. Biblically.
It looks like they're done with him.
God exists. Replies?
Is he gonna get booted or is he gonna leave?
Ukulele?
What was that?
Who said ukulele?
I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean by that? So I'll justify premise 1.
No, they're just fucking with
God
him.
exists through ontotheology/agape theism entails divine revelation for fatherhood to personal creatures. Simplistically, an ultimate truthful loving being necessitates a general/natural revelation respecting parenthood to conscious temporalities. More clearly, an absolute, eternal, and all-knowing mind elicits meta-ontotheological omnibenevolence and sacred theology regarding
Meta-ontotheological benevolence.
Ontotheologically, absoluteness means a
Fucking
consciousness
nut.
because free will is independent through the law and spiritual law of cause and effect. Further, eternalness expresses a singular and all-powerful intelligence choosing to sustain themselves. Additionally, all-knowingness indicates oneness and timelessness to know all events. So premise 1 of my argument complements
Oh my
sacred
goodness.
theology, the creator-creature distinction doctrine, perfect being theology, ultimate/brute facts, the law of rational inference, and Aristotle's laws of logic/thought. So what are your responses to premise 1?
Psychotherapy came up before psychotheology.
You're all on the hot seat. So premise 1, biblically/awesomely God exists. Responses? I'll just read your message just a moment. Well, we can move on to premise 2 then. So God authorized biblicalism / the Bible. So your response to that?
Psychotheology is a basically they adopted a Freudian theory from psychopathology, and there's like okay, wait, I'll just read this because it's what is psychotheology? The term psychotheology is an adaptation of the theory from Sigmund Freud called psychopathology, in which he suggests that our unconscious mind can influence our daily life by manifesting itself in dreams, forgetfulness, slips of the tongue, or various behaviors. In psychopathology, the psychological creates the pathology. Similarly, psychotheology claims the psychological creates or strongly influences theology. In its extreme, this can attempt to relegate God to a mere figment of the imagination. So he's using this, and yet they're okay. Psychotheology suggests that we can learn to control our subconscious urges and feelings towards the existence of a deity, especially one who punishes sin and causes anxiety in the sinner, and only allow those emotions that renew and refresh rather than overwhelm and destroy. In doing so, we can learn to modify nearly everything to suit our needs, regardless of truth or reality. This idea would suggest that belief in God, celebrating holidays, or other activities that bring us joy are nothing more than manifestations of our subconscious, designed to create emotions but no real attachment. An example of this would be the observation that our society has so dulled and softened the role of Christ in the Christmas holiday that even a non-Christian feels free to celebrate it without the slightest hint of religious undertones or commitment to God. We get all of the benefit but do not need to ascribe to any beliefs to do so. But God is not a creation of man to provide us feelings of joy. It is the other way around. This is where he starts preaching, apparently. This idea that we are authors of our own joy and ultimately our destiny is completely counter to the biblical message, which states that all things are created by God and for God, as in Colossians 1:16. A philosophy like psychotheology attempts to explain away God's influence, but really accomplishes nothing more than providing a definition of the plan of Satan to mute our perception of God's sovereignty and ultimate rule over our lives. See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the basic principles of this world rather than on Christ. Colossians 2:8. So yeah, got some alternative Christian commentary. They do not agree with your psychotheology, sir.
The true high. So God authorized biblicalism for evidentialism / epistemic foundationalism as Genesis 1:1 references agape theism. More precisely, the first 5 words of Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created. Creation is an expression of love. God is love. Therefore, he wants to make that known. So we have absolute certainty that our
How is like the mere fact of creation an expression of love? I don't get that.
Judeo-Christian God exists, just based off Genesis 1:1. You may respond to that.
I don't think he realized he seems to have completely lost the room, and I think they're just trolling him in like private chat now. Because he does this all the time. He goes into other people's rooms and starts
respond to that, the true high?
Trying to guide the conversations like this, and then these people appear to have just given him a little echo chamber to sit in.
So I'll further justify my categorical argument / syllogism with a conditional syllogism. If
No.
God authorized another religious text, then it would state that this is an addition to the Bible. There is no evidence for this. We don't need to look for evidence for this because God would make himself known with absolute certainty in Genesis 1:1.
But there are many extra biblical texts of people who claim that they have spoken with God, they have walked in hell, they have been to heaven, they've seen these things. How do you know they weren't authorized by God?
As he is infallible. That is why Christianity is the leading religion in the world, and the Bible is the top-selling book.
No, Christianity is the leading religion in the world because they went around torturing people and forcing them to convert, or conquesting people, forcing them to convert. Is the most publicized book in the world because it was the first widely publicized book in the world, right? That doesn't mean... doesn't mean what you think it means. And now he's talking to himself. This is boring. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead like 15 minutes, and we'll do a little bit more of this, and then move along.
So I'll just rejoin.
Did he get? Looks like he got booted. I don't know. Yeah.
Ultimate, can I propose as an atheist?
Tired of hearing your shit.
Yes.
Okay, God.
It's not working. Oh, here. There we go. I don't care what the fuck that guy had to say anymore. I'm over it.
God, and God is true. So you said you wasn't dealing with the nature. You just said in and of
Yes,
itself,
I
God is
am.
truth.
Yes,
So
God is
if
ultimate truth. Truth is
listen, that doesn't make
information.
sense.
Yes, it
Listen,
does.
okay,
Allow me to
bro, you
explain
don't understand
myself.
what
Yes,
you're
I
saying.
do.
Wait, he just said truth is information. All information is true. Is that your position?
Never
Damn it,
disregarded that
you're
God is ultimate
interrupting
truth.
me.
Bro,
Stop
bro,
interrupting
I'm not,
me.
I'm
Ah,
not
here
done
we go.
talking. I'm not
You
done
are
talking.
gish
Listen,
galloping. You're bringing
I'm
up
not
too
done
many
talking.
points. You're
Listen,
bringing
I'm not
up
done
too. You're
talking,
bringing
bro.
up too many points.
You're
Allow
full.
me.
That's funny. You use somebody else in the gish gallop. That's all you do. That's your whole fucking thing. You use convoluted language that other people have to fucking use a thesaurus to fucking decipher.
Address one fallacious claim at a time. So again, God is ultimate truthful love. As allow me to
never agreed. I never
justify
disagreed with
this. Allow me to justify this. So when I say truth, that's another word for information/knowledge.
Oh, wait. Information, knowledge, and truth are synonymous? No. No, you're wrong.
Information/knowledge is absolute, eternal, and revelatory.
No.
God is
Objective.
absolute. God is absolute, eternal, and revelatory. So it's just
He just
ontology.
objected to your premise, and you're not letting him fucking speak.
Yes,
The
they
law of
correlate. Oh my.
identity.
Bro, I don't think you understand. Listen, so if we're dealing
Yes,
with epistemology of how knowledge is knowledge, practical knowledge, propositional knowledge. This is not God is not propositional knowledge. He is God. Listen, I'm not like I said, I'm not dealing with his
referencing a
ontology.
proposition.
Listen, stop
This is
talking, please, brother. Please
categoricalism.
stop talking. Please stop talking. I completely confirm. I completely affirmed and clarified, like over drastic amount of times and repetitively. I'm not dealing with his nature, as in his attributes, as in God being all loving, omniscient, omnipotent, etc., etc. You and then we proceeded to debate, and you said, brother, you said that God is truth. I said that we came to the same fundamental, that God is the arbiter. Arbiter means that you have full sovereignty of truth.
God
You can establish what's
is
true.
truth. God
So
is
God
all
is not
knowing.
in and of itself as identity. He's not truth. He is
Yes,
God.
he is. God is
There's two
all...
different categories.
No, there's not.
Bro, you're
John
playing, bro.
14:6. John 14:6. Jesus says he is the way, the
That
truth.
doesn't deal. Listen, that doesn't.
Jesus
Bro,
states
that
he is
doesn't.
the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father.
Yeah,
except
that deals
through
with his
him.
ontology as in his nature. That deals with his nature, which is
God
being, brother.
is truth. He is all
Okay, let me respond
knowing.
to that. Let me respond to that. Can I respond to that, please? Yes, that is once again talk about God's ontology, his nature. He's the way, truth, and life. He's the way. He's the only. Jesus is the bridge to the Father. They basically go to heaven because John 3:5 quite literally says, "If you're not born of the Word and Spirit, you got into the kingdom of God." So he only acknowledges that he's the only mediator to get to the Father. That's the way. The truth is affirming that he is the only truth. No one can go through the Father other than through him, and he is life. That he is all of all creation. That's still his nature, his quality. As in your quality is interrupting people, brother. I said I wasn't talking about God's ontology. Again, so once again, that's not talk about identity, brother. That's talk about his nature, not identity.
Now it's my turn to respond. So don't interrupt me.
Of course.
So God is ultimate, truthful love.
Oh my goodness.
Because
Oh my goodness.
don't interrupt me. Again,
don't disregard that.
Don't interrupt me. So information
Oh, hate to use the C word, but what a fucking cunt.
/ truth is absolute, eternal, and revelatory. God is truth as
course.
he is all knowing. So we appeal to God for truth. It's not there's no distinction here. God is ultimate truth. You just
I
have
don't
to
disregard.
accept that.
Listen, God is ultimate truth, brother. That's an
Yeah,
arbiter.
that's my
Having
premise one. That's premise one.
Brother, but arbiter is a character. Listen, arbiter as in he's the arbiter of truth, meaning he established of what is truth. Doesn't make him truth in and of itself.
He is.
He's identity as in God. He
all-knowing.
gives truth. Brother, if I make a child, if I'm the arbiter of a child, doesn't make me the child. You don't understand. There's a big dichotomy and a distinction between the two, which I'm trying to tell you. Epistemology, listen, brother, knowledge, brother. If God is, listen, if like you said, X equals X, X doesn't equal Y. That's contradiction in of itself.
You're
So
the one
God
who
is not
made that
truth. God
assertion.
subscribed, brother. God subscribed to truth. That's his nature. He gives truth. That doesn't make truth in it. Oh my.
God is ultimate truth, and ultimate
That's
truth
his-
is God. He is not subjected to anything outside of him. He is omniscient.
I never said that he
all-knowing.
was.
God
You're
is,
straw manning
I'm
me.
not. God is all knowing, therefore he
You're dealing
is
with
truth.
arguments I never made. There's no relevance
You
to you saying
made
this.
this claim.
I never disagreed that his nature, brother. I never disagreed that his nature is.
I love how this guy is beginning to match his tone. Like, this whole, like, whiny 6-year-old thing. Listen to me. Listen. Don't interrupt me.
Truth. I never disagreed. I said that God is not truth in and of itself.
Yes,
he
it
prescribed truth.
is.
Oh my, bro, you're this, bro. You're bro.
God
And I even
is
broke down the way that he
ultimate
uses,
truth.
and I even broke down the way that he used it in biblical theology, which prescribing that he's the truth is saying that he's the only way. He's the only truth to get to the Father. That doesn't say he's the truth in and of itself. He's saying that he's the only way.
Truth is an object, a particular.
You know you're a true Christian when you're frustrating other Christians. That's the real deal right there.
And that is God.
Exactly.
Yes. So God is
So
ultimate truth.
is it truth that we're talking right now? Because you're gonna deal with logical inconsistency. Is it truth that we're talking right now?
Yeah, we are.
Yes or no?
we
Answer
are-
affirmatively.
yes,
Please answer
we
affirmatively and
are-
only answer affirmatively.
Yes,
Are we talking?
because
Okay, so if we're talking, does that
referencing
make talking?
God.
Does that talk? Does that listen? If we are talking, does that make God talk? Does that make God talking in and of itself? No, because God's identity.
We
God's
inherit
identity.
the spirit of life. God breathed into the nostrils of first man the spirit of life. So we inherit.
What?
knowledge of God.
Bro, you don't
Yes, I do.
bro, you don't understand what you're
Yes, I
bro.
do. So premise
God,
one,
bro.
you're presupposing.
my-
You're presupposing my
Bro,
argument.
this guy's a schizo.
I'm
He has a
not.
list. This guy's a
I'm
schizo.
not.
Bro, he's
I'm
a
God's best
pseudo,
friend.
bro. He's a pseudo.
No, you know what he
God's
said
best
that
friend.
he said he has divine revelations, and he was like, he's touching my head right now. I swear to
Yeah,
God,
God
he
is,
said that.
God
He said
is
he has
touching the side of my head right now, and I'm sitting on God's lap as we are speaking right now. So
You see what I'm
premise,
talking
so
about?
premise one, biblically / awesomely, God exists. Properly address
I know.
premise one.
No, we're not. You're not gonna run from the argument that you
This
just
is
made the
my
identity.
I'm the one.
Like,
You haven't. You're presupposing premise one of my argument.
how am I precept? I didn't even deal, bro. Bro. I'm not debating this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking
Yes,
about.
I do.
He obviously, bro. He's
you
making
believe in God too, right?
epistemological. He's making a logical epistemological arguments, saying
It's an
truth.
ontological
Listen, epistemology is
argument.
Oh my God, guys.
bro. Epistemology. Listen, epistemically, you can deal with ontology. That's how truth it derives. Ontology just means meta, bro. Ontology, brother. Ontology just means meta. Like metaphysics, or metaethics.
My shit just froze. It's doing weird shit taking me to Pine Creek's channel. Go check out Pine Creek's channel. I'm enjoying that. I'm sure most of you already know, but if you don't, yeah, it's fun. It's fun over there. I'm gonna have to reshare it. Just fucking glitched out on me. I'll check out another video. Sometimes I accidentally add videos to this watch later list. Like I just saw one of my own in there. So I'm going to remove that. And anything we've covered extensively already, obviously, in these streams, because we're trying to get it back down under 100. You got 108, but this one can go. I hope y'all are having a wonderful Sunday. Oh, here's the one I was looking for before. Nice. Okay, we can go look at that. Yeah, I've had a pretty stable connection so far. Sunday morning's a good time because there's nobody else in the house, usually. Like right now, but it's off and on because I am not in the house. So, my connection's still a bit spotty, but it looks all right so far. All right, let's check this one out. I watched this one. This is like from a month ago. I don't want to mispronounce it. Abba Lassier, I think is how it's a French thing. I looked it up. This channel's pretty good. I first discovered this guy doing critiques on Matt Dillahunty, but a lot of it is very satirical, so it's fun to watch. So it's Atheism is Racist. About 7 minutes. We'll see. We'll get into it here. Let's see if he makes serious points here. A lot of satire. Why am I at Jordan Peterson's channel? Oh, it's an ad. Okay. Yeah, so what the fuck is this? Let him in? What the fuck is up with these ads?
I was born and raised Jewish. I never wore that little hat, like the special hat that lets everybody know what ethnic group you're a member of and what you believe in. Like this is pretty fucking bad. I mean, being seen in public with the Bernie Sanders cap on, yeah. You know the signal you're sending out to the world. But no matter which religion your parents or grandparents may have chosen for you, do you really want to wear a hat whether it's a turban, whether it's a kippah, no matter what kind of headdress or headscarf you're imagining, you really want to make your religious affiliation into a hat. Now, look, I had an atheist phase. I grew out of it. But I had a period of time in my life where I was an atheist and I was into atheism. I thought, isn't this barbaric? Isn't this barbaric that these people would go around advertising their religion, their beliefs, on their head? I come from, a much more intellectually refined tradition where I express my religious conviction by having a surgeon cut off part of my dick.
These green ribbons have been placed by parents and students in support of Miss Fatima, a grade 3 teacher at Chelsea Elementary School who lost her job over the hijab she wears.
When it actually affects the people there's a bigger shock value to it.
Miss Fatima lost her teaching job due
And there we go, Death Spiral.
the province's law that bans people in certain government jobs, including teachers, from wearing religious symbols while at work. These ribbons hang on the fence of an Anglophone school in Chelsea, Quebec. They're green, the color of Islam, in support of Fatima Anvari, who lost her teaching job because she wears a hijab. About 100 parents and their children gathered to protest Quebec's secularism law. Fatima.
Yeah, so this makes a lot of sense to me. It's covering here. There's like a forced secularism in the school system that says that she can't wear her hijab while teaching, like as if that should be some kind of criminal act or something, or that you'd lose your job at least, which is what happened apparently in this case. And I don't particularly agree or ascribe to like religious headwear. I think he's intentionally conflating as a satire in the beginning there, like the political ideology with the religious one, and like we have bumper stickers, right? But there's a difference between like supporting a candidate this year as opposed to like the Christian bumper stickers, just evangelizing in passing, right? Because it's kind of vacuous. Whereas the other form is more of just an advertisement.
Fatima Anvari was reassigned to an administrative position. The incident reignited the secularism debate in Quebec.
Amrit Kaur recently graduated to become a teacher and has now moved her life across the country from her Montreal area home to BC. She wants to work while wearing her turban, which is illegal in Quebec public schools.
We are being told that we're second-class citizens.
She's also the vice president of the World Sikh Organization of Quebec. Kaur says her turban represents equality and is part of her identity.
It was one of the big moments in the federal election, a debate question about a Quebec law, Bill 21.
Why the discriminatory laws in this?
It was the first question of the night to the Bloc Québécois leader, who was indignant.
Those laws are not about discrimination. They are about the values of Quebec.
Other leaders, then chasing voters in Quebec, turned on the moderator. But after a Quebec school board enforced Bill 21 this week by removing a teacher from her classroom for wearing a hijab, federal politicians were quick to denounce it.
Symbolism is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of weakness we don't take seriously enough. If you're not ashamed of your religion, if you're not ashamed of your beliefs, and you want to say to the world that you're not ashamed, why don't you have your beliefs written out in plain English?
Yeah, get it tattooed on your chest. Get your dick skin cut off. Yeah, I mean, for sure. If you're so committed to that belief, yeah, you'd probably want it like permanently tattooed on your forehead rather than like a ball cap. The satire here is palpable. I let it. Let's see where he's going.
On your t-shirt or on your hat, instead of relying on symbolism. If you really believe that all women should remain virgins until marriage, why don't you write that on your hat? Why don't you write that on your t-shirt? If you believe that all women should remain virgins and then they should be married off to a man chosen by their parents in an arranged marriage, if that's what you believe, if you believe that the Bible and the Quran are pro-slavery and that God doesn't make mistakes, that it's no error, it's no accident. The Bible is pro-slavery and therefore you are pro-slavery. The Quran is pro-slavery and therefore you are pro-slavery. Why don't you write that on your fucking t-shirt? Why don't you go around wearing that on your hat?
Oh, have you listened to Jesus is Lord? Yeah, he'd probably agree with that. But there's a difference. Yeah, you know, we got like 3 or 5 different types of slavery. You know, which one are you talking about? But at the same time, no. In regards to this case, you know, I think it is, you know, absolutely reprehensible that this woman has been removed from her teaching position over her headscarf. In this country, it is totally her choice. Now, it may be because of her religious conviction, right? But I go with the old George Carlin bit where, you know, one rule and one rule only. Hats optional. You know, hats are optional. If you want to wear your fucking hat, go ahead. It's not promoting a political ideology. As long as she's not teaching Islamic values in the classroom as part of the education routine, I really don't see what the fucking big deal is about her wearing a hijab.
Why rely on symbolism if the whole fucking point of this symbol is to declare that you're not ashamed of what it is you believe in? Let me tell you something.
Well, no, that's not the point. In Islam, it's a matter of her integrity as a person, right? So that's a totally different thing than advertising a political view or even like your specific personal religious views. You're just, you know, merely adhering to the tenets of your religion. Now, should Islam maybe go out of their way to amend this law? Like, you know, like the Christians have done in the case of slavery. They're like, well, that was then, this is now type of thing. You know, we can bend the rules here or reinterpret the text to agree with modernity. Islam is just way behind in doing that.
My parents cut off part of my penis in a ritual.
Me too. I feel for you, buddy.
That could be described as satanic rather than biblical. When I was a newborn baby, my parents cut off part of my penis and I lost 60% of the nerve endings.
Actually, we might be fortunate in that case. I don't know. Because I'm like, well, as far as sexual prowess, you know, like longevity is where it's at. And, you know, pretty much every man on the face of the earth has experienced like premature evacuation or something, you know. So the fact that we're losing some of those nerve endings, you know, it may actually be advantageous to those of us who are in the school of thought that making love is about more than just reproduction.
In my penis, as a blood sacrifice to a God that does not exist. Would you be willing to?
I don't think that's why they implemented that. It was an issue of cleanliness back in the day when we didn't really know about medicine. It would prevent a lot of nasty penis problems, like you get, you know, dick cheese and, you know, yeast infections and shit that are less common with circumcision. But now we have like better tools to actually deal with that rather than just cutting the skin off. Whereas back in the day, they were like, yeah, just cut it off. Fuck it.
To employ a teacher, to have someone teach your children in school who has it not symbolically expressed on a hat, their style of dress, in a headscarf and a turban, but who has it written on their chest explicitly in plain English?
Well, it's like a Catholic school, right? All the nuns are wearing their religious garb and their crosses, right? I mean, they do that in Catholic schools all over the fucking world.
That what they believe is that cutting off that part of the penis, that's perfectly normal, that's okay, that they want to pass on the excuses for that ritual to the next generation. I believe in these modern excuses for the barbarity of the Dark Ages. That's what you're trying to say in your hat. That's what you're trying to say on your t-shirt. And it does disqualify you from being a school teacher. It should disqualify you from playing any role in...
No, see, again, I think I disagree with that. I mean, the fact of someone wearing a headscarf, if I wanted to cover my head for whatever reason, that would be completely irrelevant. It doesn't necessarily express an ideology. Now, if she's in there saying, preaching the words, of the Quran in her classroom, that's a different story. Just like if my teacher is wearing a crucifix, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so offended. You know what I mean? I will probably question what that person is teaching, and then I will say, well, if I was a student, or I'd say more properly now with my kids, if I knew that my kid's teacher was religious, my only question would be, are they teaching their religion in the classroom? If not, they're just wearing an article of their faith. Well, yeah, I think it's pretty primitive, but it's also pretty commonplace, and it's not really that big of a deal. We can explain that to children.
In government whatsoever.
A 27-year-old woman is making history because of her headscarf and her new job in television. Zahara Rahman was a behind-the-scenes producer, and now she's an on-air reporter in Rock Island, Illinois. Dana Kozlov has the story.
Never really thought it was a possibility.
The former Naperville resident is almost a week into her new reporting job, and she also happens to be the first full-time Muslim TV reporter to wear her hijab on the air.
It's huge for our community. It's huge for women.
Which is amazing. I don't know how I think the title "Atheism is Racist" was just like a catcher to get, it was just a clickbait title. But yeah, clearly, this is not drag. Yeah, it's not a product of like radical secularism, right? Why did it do that? Oh, this thing's fucking up on me. I'm sorry. Something I didn't do. But it could be. This could be the way that like a radical secular society goes. Well, now we're going to prohibit you from merely wearing your religious garb in public spaces. Like, yeah, it's a little cringe. Now I would say, teaching your religion in public spaces, no, can't do it. But we have to draw that line somewhere. And as far as what people choose to wear, as long as it is their choice, yeah, we can criticize it, but banning it wholesale is ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. Here's a short one. We'll give Jamie the views of 39-second video, painting pro tips. I think Jamie was streaming last night as well and had an open room. I was unable to attend though. Oh, no, we got 2 minutes. Whoa, buddy. These ads are just out of control, man.
Okay, how do you cut in lines? They're very precise. Load up your brush. Make sure it's not going to drip.
Well, I'll just tell you right now what you should have done, right, was painted that top line, and then gone and done the board. It's not a baseboard. It's a whatever that top board was on the wall. But that's fine. You can do it however you want.
Lubricate your path. This was paint, right?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Once you got your line lubricated,
Lubricated?
brush and you pull.
Is that the word they use? Oh, that's pretty good.
Back the other way. That's how you cut in fine line.
Not too bad. Give credit where credit is due. See, ooh, S.J. Thomason. This one's a little older. Let's go back there. I listen to S.J. every now and again. I think I personally invited her on the channel back when a while ago, and got no response. So that's fine. That's fine. This is the Atheist Experience, not the video I just clicked on. But that's what happens when you have significant lag. Oh my God. Just did it again. I can't believe this. Oh. It actually hit the right video? It's just getting better. We'll let this Phil Talk video play and then go back to it. Very slow. Very slow. Once again, StreamYard is fucking with me because it says I have like a super solid Wi-Fi connection, but this is happening. And I don't know why. See, maybe I can kill this tab and that will probably help a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. How's it going, everybody? Sunday afternoon.
I don't know.
Y'all are all Calvinists?
There we go.
Indeed. Yeah, all three of us are.
Yep. Oh, that's cool. Before I got on, I think you were just about to move on to free will, right? Or maybe I'm wrong about that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I understand, Calvinists do accept like a kind of compatibilist free will. Like
he determined a world where no one sins, but there's the missing element of his justice, right? And I'm not, these aren't the end of my contentions or the end of our expertise on this. I'm just softballing and we can build up as it goes.
Yeah, so you're saying that God had to create sin because of his justice? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we see that's the conclusion. Like we can apprehend that reality based on our belief in God. Now, why God does certain things, we as Christians claiming to be indwelt by the Spirit, we don't possess the knowledge of exactly why God does these things, right? But we can still look and apprehend that based on the Word and based on the reality of nature and the current events, that's the choice that God's made. And where we distinguish ourselves from creatures from the Creator is that we see all this abundant evil and sin. And I think the atheist is right in identifying these terrible things that happen in nature and in reality. But we just distinguish that God, being the perfectly eternal and moral being, he could look ahead and work those things for the pleasures and the will that he sought out to demonstrate. So ultimately, all of reality, it's all God's. It's not ours. We get to be here by extension of his grace. So we don't try to guess why God's doing these things. We just see it and understand and accept that he is doing these things.
Oh, it was unmuted. So that's like blind faith. He's just describing blind faith, and we don't really care about the explanations. And I guess they're all okay. We'll see what happens with this one. It looks like Danny's going to get booted eventually.
Right.
Yeah, but going back what does it even mean to say that God had to create sin in virtue of its justice, its property of justice? I suppose I don't know what that means.
Well,
Jeremiah,
we wouldn't.
because I don't want to make this one-sided.
Yeah, we wouldn't say that God created sin, because sin by nature is not necessarily created, because it doesn't have it's not a substance. Sin by definition is violation of God's law, and God by nature cannot create a violation of his law. That would be contradicting himself. So God allows men to contradict God's law for the sake of his own plans and purposes. We see in Ephesians 1:11 that God ordains things according to the counsel of his will. So if he is all wise and all knowing, he is able to allow certain things for his own wise purposes, as we see throughout the entirety of redemptive history. This is why many theologians have called the fall of Adam, yes, a bad thing that happened, but they call it a felix culpa, the fortunate fall. The reason why it is fortunate is because within God's plan, God has allowed this to happen, has allowed human sin to happen, in order to glorify himself in a beautiful way that would not have happened if sin did not enter into the world.
Which doesn't make any sense. I mean, why would God create sin in the first place? The only thing that glorifies him is human suffering? Like, that's all that sin amounts to, if you're really like, it's just human suffering and some being redeemed, but most not being. Like, so how is that? I don't know. It's just...
As the Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 9, what if God, if willing to show his power, show his might, and make his power known, endured with much patience vessels of wrath prepared for destruction? And he did so to show the riches of his glory upon vessels of mercy, which he prepared beforehand for glory, even us whom he also called, not from the Jews only, but also from among the Gentiles. God allowed sin to enter into the world by human choice in order to demonstrate his divine attributes. And he has...
Wait, that wasn't human choice, though, because the humans were deceived, right? So God allowed the deceiver in, right? And God created the deceiver, right? So everything you're saying doesn't actually align with your biblical... within the Bible.
Has good reasons to do so, because God is the highest good, and everything that comes to the glorification of God ends up resulting in good in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Well, but it also results in unnecessary evil and suffering, right? You're not accounting for the evil and suffering, which is completely unnecessary to the story and antithetical to your God.
All of this is not making sense to me. In the first place, you corrected me in saying that God doesn't create sin, number one, because sin is not...
Danny, are you eating?
But there are things that can be brought about without them being separate.
He does. He sounds like he's fucking chewing. Come on, man. I would kick you out of my stream too.
Properties. Presumably, you think I caused sin, so it's not... I mean, if you want me to drop the word create and ask you the question, does God cause sin? Would that be better?
No, he allows sin. He allows sin.
Okay, so
because
God
the term we do.
So God doesn't.
But anything that God allows, he must have created, because God created everything, according to your story, right? God had to create literally everything. So he had to create the sin, the sinner, the deceiver, the Satan. All those things are products of God's creation.
We cause sin, is what you're saying?
Right.
He's the ultimate first cause, but he accomplishes his plan of redemption through the means of secondary causes. So he can, as a divine author, this is an analogy, and maybe Jeremiah will even rebut me. Maybe Jeremiah doesn't like this analogy. But as the author of eternity in all events that happen within time, he can write how the story will go and accomplish his plan based on that. That doesn't mean he's causing it to happen, or he's actually the one acting in time doing it.
Yes, it is. If he's the first cause, that means he caused everything to happen. It just like caused one thing to happen, and then a series of subsequent events like altered his plan. Then God didn't plan it.
But look, there's presumably y'all accept the transitivity of causation, right? Like, for instance, if I strike a match and then I threw the match at your house and then it burned down the house and it killed somebody, I caused the death. Now, there are a bunch of causes in between me striking the match and the death of the person, but there's the transitivity of causes that if A causes B, B causes C, C causes D, then that's going to imply that A causes D, right? So if God is the primary cause, okay, of some event, let's say my sinning, right, there's going to be a series of causes, true, between the primary cause, which is God, and the event in which I sin. Given transitivity, right, it's going to imply that God causes sin, just logically.
Only, but again, as you said, only by implication and by transitive connection, not in the way that the charge is often given.
Then you would have to acknowledge that sin exists contemporaneously with God, right? So God as the ultimate first thing could not exist. Sin must have existed contemporaneously with God the Creator, and therefore Satan, right?
And because
I don't understand. What do you mean often given? It's going to be true that I caused the death of the person in the house, correct?
Well, Danny, as I was actually going to explain before you interrupted me, the general claim that is laid is that God is the author of sin, as in He is the one.
But I've only said cause. I'm not talking. I'm not using the term author because there are different interpretations of the word author. I'm very clear about what I'm asking here.
Which was why I was trying to.
Sin? Did God cause sin? And you're saying no.
Let's let Jeremiah finish his thought before you make provocative statements against what you think he's.
I'm not really interested in bloviation. I just want my questions answered directly.
I wasn't trying.
Some questions aren't so easily
answered. To answer your question.
You can have them answered the way we're going to answer them, or you can exit the live.
I just don't want my question being.
Oh, he just made a threat. If you don't like our answers, you can leave, buddy. Right? But if your answers are nonsensical, maybe that's your hang up, right? Like, because I see like the many contradictions already going on here. Yeah. If God causes everything to arise, then sin arises as a product of God in one form or another, and God has complete control and all the answers. So the fact that you say He allows it really doesn't let Him off the hook for it being present in the first place, right? God had to allow it in the first place. And I don't see how it's all just to glorify Him. Like, I love this evangelist, prideful God, because pride is a sin unless God does it, right? Every time.
In malform, like twisted, right? I'm not asking about the author.
We believe in intellectual honesty. We're not going to twist your question.
He did just twist it, right?
No,
did I ever talk about the author of sin? I just simply asked, did God cause sin? You said no, but given transitivity, you're committed to saying that God caused sin.
It sounds like you're just trying to lead us to the answer that you want to hear from us in your attempt to refute, and that's that.
No, he's trying to guide the conversation using basic logic. Basic logic. I mean, props, Danny. You're with the wrong group, obviously, but no, I smell what you're stepping in.
That's actually intellectually dishonest.
Do you disagree?
I'm not getting into it. I'm letting them have this discussion. But you're interrupting him. Hold on. You're not even letting me speak, and I haven't said a word since you've gone on.
Now you're talking about the meta conversation. I'm not interested in the meta conversation.
All right. Well, fair enough then.
There may be an issue of a bit of audio lag too. Experience that all the time in live chats. Like, doesn't matter whose room, biggest or smallest content creator, there tends to be some audio lag, and if you don't give 3 to 4 seconds between sentences for the other person who's responding, you tend to talk over each other a bit, and it gets a little shaky. It's not something that we do intentionally. I have it happen in my own streams. It's just like you have to decide when to stop short and let somebody else finish, or whether you're far enough into a line of thought that you need to kind of finish what you're saying, right? Like, a balance. And so far, this seems to be a pretty balanced conversation. It's just a 3-on-1, and these guys are not jiving with Danny's logic. It's a little too logical for them.
I'll just be quiet then if you don't want to hear me speak. If my opinion doesn't matter to you,
you can reply to my question.
No, we're good.
Directly.
I'll be
You don't
quiet.
have to get into the meta conversation.
You go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, well, okay, right. Danny's trying to keep it on track, but he does come off a little rude. It's somebody else's room. This is like what biblically does. No, respond to my question. Respond. It's like, dude, this is not your house. You just fucking force people to respond to your question directly. If they're going to be evasive, they're going to be evasive. Take it down to like the level of Darth Dawkins. He would have booted you like fucking 4 minutes ago.
Go ahead. Go ahead and get angry. I'm just going to sit back and listen. You do.
Yeah,
you.
I'm just saying that I'm not. All I'm saying is that I'm not interested in the meta conversation. Okay, I'm just interested in the question: did God cause sin? Is it a yes or no?
And you're giving a dichotomy, and you're not going to allow us to actually elaborate on an answer. It's just like you want us to hear say yes or no, and that's it.
Well, no, because I mean, in all intellectual honesty, most Christians will claim that God caused everything, right? So if you're being intellectually honest and consistent with your Christian worldview, you'd have to say that God created and allowed for everything which exists, including sin and evil. But if you're going to try to evade that question actively for the entire conversation, I could see why Danny would be frustrated too.
Me yes or no, and then elaborate. Qualify your answer after yes or no, because it's not clear to me if you elaborate first.
Danny, I was trying to elaborate, but every single time that I did,
What are you elaborating on? Yes or no?
Danny, I can't even get a word out, bro.
I just want a yes or I can't even get a yes or no.
Danny,
I can't even get a yes or no.
Danny,
Is it yes or no?
Why are you the arbiter of truth here that you can demand on his live?
You're asking somebody. You either take the answer or again just leave, or I'll put
I'm just
you out.
interested in yes or no.
Danny, you have.
And here he goes again with the threats. Once, twice, 3 times. Yeah, no, I mean, I get that. Yeah, he's now leaning towards controlling the conversation. I understand keeping on task, but again, if you're in somebody else's room, you have to play by their rules. Unfortunately, that's just the way this works, Danny. But you're a grown-ass man. I know you can figure this out.
Have 2 options: either let the people
have
who
2
are
options,
asking
yes or
the
no.
questions speak, or get out of the live.
Yeah, you have
Be
2.
done with it.
You have 2 options.
He's not
yes
gonna,
or no.
He's not going to have a conversation.
This is the same thing that Danny did earlier on Nick's live when he was trying to ask a particular question with he was trying to answer a particular question with not with Nick, but with Jordan in relation to God entering into human flesh. And he absolutely couldn't, one, understand Jordan's explanation, but he wouldn't even allow Jordan to even explain what he was talking about. It's funny when you try to ask a question and when a person is trying to answer the question and trying to actually fully enunciate your argument, you interrupt them. This is exactly how Danny always argues.
This is why you cannot play neutral with an unbeliever, an atheist. You cannot assume that they're neutral. They have cynicism and they have hatred in their heart towards the true God, to the point where, like, he said, you have 2 options. Like, you can't hijack someone's.
Okay. Hatred in their heart. Yeah, cynicism, sure. A healthy level of skepticism, a healthy level of cynicism. But the whole hatred thing, they have to insist that we hate them. Like, we don't hate you. We dislike your ideas. We disapprove, right? And we definitely don't hate God. We can't hate something that we don't believe in. We can hate the idea. That's true, but I don't think that's indicative of what happened here. Danny was trying to was trying to guide the conversation so that yes, there was a dichotomy presented, and you could not effectively answer whether the answer was A or B, A or not A, or whatever, your rejection of the dichotomy, right, it's unfounded, right? You cannot simultaneously believe that God created everything in the universe, but God did not create sin, right? That is logically That's a logical contradiction. It's contradictory, sir. You're simultaneously holding 2 opposing beliefs.
One's live as a guest, and then hold a gun philosophically to their head and say, here's my question I want you to answer, but you can only answer it like this. You especially.
I mean, that's true. I mean, maybe the more mature thing at that point would be to say, hey, if you can't logically answer this one question, then yeah, I'll just leave. And Danny waited for you to kick him instead. Fine. Okay.
I can't do that as a guest. Very disrespectful.
Well, but this is what Danny does. This is what Danny always does. And this is probably the first time that you've seen him. I didn't even know he came into the lot.
Oh no, I could say I've seen Danny get into some complex meta theology with some people. Like, you obviously are unaware of what Danny does, because Phil Talk and this channel is relatively new. I've seen Danny get into it with atheists. Anybody who's philosophically minded, he will get into the meta. That just wasn't what he was looking to do here. So, and check yourself, Chickadee, check yourself.
But I mean, if we would obviously say, yes, God is the first cause, and by extension, he causes sin. We would obviously say causes sin.
Nice. Let's see if we can move on to this SJ video. Going an hour and a half. We can do another half hour, right? Modern miracles that will blow you away. Is it gonna work? I keep getting this spiral of death. See, and I've still got like a full solid connection on my end, so I don't know what it is with StreamYard and me playing YouTube videos. It just doesn't like it. Thanks to my supporters, subscribers, friends, people who come by the channel, past, present, future, all that good stuff. Oh no, we're only at 117 right now. 118. Okay, not too bad. Play this little video while this thing buffers.
It's like banging a tennis ball against a brick wall. It can be fun, but it's not a game.
Food, yeah, it's a fundraiser, you know. That's why I'm here, really. We're seeking some help, you know, for food and stuff like that. It really is. It's just, it's food stuff, really. And like aspirin would be nice, actually, because we've been both having major headaches. You know what I mean? Things happen.
Hi, everybody. Today we're going to investigate the interconnectedness of Mother Mary and Russia and Ukraine.
Are these interconnected ideas? All right.
I'm very interested to know that a lot of the connections go back to the miracles at Fatima and back to Our Lady's message to the 3 children at Fatima. And we can learn a lot from that by investigating these miracles. So we're going to look into a few.
It reminds me of a joke that one of my exes once told me. You know, she's bilingual. She's also Spanish. So they the joke is pronouncing Fatima as Fatima. I mean, I can't remember the whole thing, but yeah, it's kind of a joke to a lot of the Mexican Catholics who are a bit more secular, I think. But anyway, totally unrelated.
2 of the miracles. Over the past 1,000 years, Our Lady Mother Mary has appeared multiple times all over the globe in apparitions. Sometimes she requests prayers to the rosary. Other times she warns of upcoming doom. Still other times she requests that shrines be built to her Immaculate Heart. Sometimes she comforts and blesses innocent children who have gone on to dedicate their lives to Jesus by living as his humble saints and servants. Miracles have often accompanied these events, as evidenced by Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Lourdes, and Our Lady of Fatima. The miracles often include miraculous healings where the lame can walk or the blind can see. So we'll first get into Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's what's pictured here in the center. Mary's appearances often also include remnants of her, such as the image on the tilma in Guadalupe. The tilma is a cloak made of a cactus, which is a low-quality material that usually has a very short shelf life of around 15 to 30 years. In December of 1531, she appeared to an Aztec peasant named Juan Diego. Here's what she said.
I just have to say, a cloak of cactus sounds very uncomfortable. That's the first I've heard of it. I'm not too familiar, so let's let SJ go on.
Juan de Guido, know for certain, least of my sons, that I am the perfect and perpetual Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus, the true God, through whom everything lives, the Lord of all things near and far, the Master of heaven and earth. It is my earnest wish that a temple be built here to my honor. Here I will demonstrate, I will manifest, I will give all my love, my compassion, my help, and my protection to the people.
Our Lady of Guadalupe, also known as the Virgin of Guadalupe, is a Catholic title of Mary, Mother of Jesus, associated with a series of 5 Marian apparitions, which are believed to have occurred in December 1531 in a venerated image on a cloak enshrined within the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City, right? So this is a direct result of the conquistadors and stuff like that, right? Like they're like killing people and pushing their religion and building churches. And so of course these people start to have visions of the Virgin Mary, and the Catholic tradition emphasizes much more the virgin birth and the mother of Jesus as much as the Christ himself, right? Which is the main difference between Catholicism and Christianity. Pretty basic stuff. But yeah, just to roll it up. So these are all churches basically enshrining and worshiping the Virgin Mary as the predecessor to the Christ, right? And so it is the mother in these cases. And these are typically more matriarchal societies, I think, that adopted this, or maybe they just incorporated it into the religion to be inclusive of women, which makes sense because at the time you had just a bunch of dudes in positions of authority, and women in the ancient world were so much subjected to the male authority. You had to give them a place in the church, and that's all these guys really did.
I am your merciful mother, the merciful mother of all of you who live united in this land, and of all mankind, and all those who love me, of course, who cry to me, of those who seek me, and of those who have confidence in me. Here I will hear their weeping, their sorrow, and will remedy and alleviate all their multiple sufferings, necessities, and misfortunes. She arrived after the Spaniard Hernando Cortez's 1521 conquer of the Aztecs with a plan to spread Christianity throughout the Americas. Cortez had outlawed the Aztec practice of human sacrifice and replaced idols from an Aztec temple.
And there she said it herself. There she said it herself. It is a direct result of these people trying to convert these people to Christianity by force, right? Destroying their temples and defiling their temples with Christian imagery.
Aztecs worshipped the following gods: the god of war and the god of the sun, the god of destiny and fortune, the god of civilization and order, the god of the moon, the night, and farmers, and the god of rain, among others.
Right. Pagan worship. So this is typical. This is typical for the early Christian, the Roman Catholic Church. This is what they did. They went around to pagan societies, terrorized them, and defiled their temples. And this is how this imagery arises.
Among other gods. Juan Diego, his wife, and his uncle were early converts to the Christian faith who had been baptized in 1525. Juan Diego followed Mother Mary's instructions and asked Bishop Zumarraga to build a shrine, but the bishop was skeptical. He asked for a sign, so Juan Diego returned to the place where he had met Mary and asked her for a miracle. Mother Mary directed him to pick some fresh flowers from a dry desert-like place on a mountain. He picked the flowers, and Mother Mary arranged them in his tilma, which he carried to the bishop's house on December 12th of 1531. When he opened the tilma to display the flowers, they fell on the floor, and a miraculous and colorful image of the Blessed Mother appeared on his tilma. Upon seeing the image, the bishop wept and asked for forgiveness for his doubts. By December 26 of the same year, builders had erected a shrine on Tepeyac Hill in Mexico City in honor of our Blessed Mother. Notice that the image of the pregnant Mother Mary stands before the sun and atop of a crescent moon, which sent a message to the Aztecs who worshiped the false gods of the sun and the moon. The image is reminiscent of the Queen of Heaven from Revelation 12, who is clothed with the sun and atop of the moon. The woman is an image, is wearing a gold medallion with an engraved cross, which conveyed her consecration to Jesus. The turquoise color of the woman's cloak was consistent with the colors Aztec royalty.
I just want to say, hey, Richard Madsen, peace and respect to you. Yeah, link should be up now. Looks like it popped in.
Peace and respect, Kev. What's up?
Good to see you. Oh, I'm just doing a watch later stream. I got all these videos piled up, and yeah, this one kind of piqued my interest here.
Yeah, this whole Guadalupe thing makes me want to pull my hair out by the roots. And I'll tell you why. The text of the Bible, and I'm not asking you to be a great Bible student, I'll support my case. The text describes this, okay? So first of all, I can say these people had the Bible, and they already had a way to look at this, and that it came to them as a vision, whether an individual or a group's kind of irrelevant. That they already had preconceived notions about this, right? So they already had a way to look at this, and they saw what they thought they should see. But is that what the text is talking about? There is a woman, and she is cloaked in roses. Her cloak has roses on it, and not her cloak, but her cloak, her robe has roses on it, and then her cloak has stars on it, which you see as those little specks on the green area. And this, where these radiants come out from her, that's actually supposed to be only 12, not hundreds or however many radiant rays are around her. And she has the moon at her feet, and she's supported by a cherubim. Now, the definition of a cherubim is something that wields a flaming sword, turning it every way. So try to imagine, a sword. You never grab a sword in the middle. You always grab it by the handle, and that's on one end. And then you have maybe your arm length. But if you soaked rags in like diesel fuel and you caught them on fire or oil, and you'd wrapped them around this sword, and you turn that sword every way, then from whatever pivot point, you would end up with a sphere. Like if you imagined a long exposure film of someone with a sparkler or a flaming something. Because of the light, you would end up with a flaming sphere eventually, right? With a long
kind of like those time-lapse pictures of the moon orbiting or something like that.
Precisely. It makes yes. Okay. So it makes this wobbly circle. Yeah. So if you do enough of that, you end up with a sphere, and then the moon is at her feet. Okay, that is, she's more important than the moon, right? And she's got roses on her, and she's in a cloak of stars, and she has 12 radiant points. This is all referring back to pagan ways of looking at the earth. That's what the text is talking about. That Mother Earth idea with roses and lots of other plants, but roses are the ones they chose to represent in that case. That she's in a cloak of stars. She's in outer space. There's stars in every direction. That the sun, this big great flaming sphere or cherubim, is what supports her. That is, we get our energy from the sun. And she's more important than the moon.
So in a way, this is almost like an anti-Christian idea that's wrapped in a Christian image, right?
Precisely, yes. But it's just talking about the physicality of the planet. It's not the Mother Mary.
Right. Well, I mean, there seems to be some importance, and a lot of pagan culture embraces this, in in the feminine aspect of the giving of life, and Christianity seems to sometimes kind of downplay that. Like women are always merely subject, and God is the father, and there is no mother God, right? Like Mary's just some chick in the text, and I think that's why these cultures that are again like more maternalistic kind of embraced her more as the figurehead. Well, Jesus couldn't have existed without Mary, right? That type of thing.
Or maybe starting the support of a feminist kind of movement, like you said before, is very agreeable to me. That's just evidently so, you know. That's the beginning of the equality of women, which frankly should have been equal the whole time. And the reason that Eve is not taken from the forehead nor the foot, because she's on equal ground. But I would argue with the Christian who says something like, there's no female God in the Bible. There definitely is. Read the Song of Solomon. It's a straight guy talking about how powerful and strong and the Apollo-like physique of the male entity God, and also the breasts and the softness and the suppleness of the female entity God. Well, he's not confused. He's just talking about two different things.
Well, but on the other end of that, what you have Paul and some of the other writers saying that women should be silent in the church. Women cannot teach the word, things like that.
Actually, what you're talking about is a Christian tradition, which we should always separate the practitioner and the practice. What someone says about the Bible is not necessarily the Bible. How they act is not necessarily demanded of the text. So when you talk about a male-dominant society using that verse to justify, well, you know, the Bible's been used to justify murder, rape,
pillaging,
genocide, pillaging, just all kinds of slavery, all kinds of stuff. That doesn't mean that that's the topic there, just because someone's used it to justify their acts, which they would have justified somehow, you know. So what the text says of women preaching is taken out of context and out of time frame in order to make the assertion. But what the text is actually talking about is end times, and how it's just Christ and the apostles and the male virgin army and them going forward. So if a woman talks, also if men outside, don't forget, men outside of it give you a different gospel, you should ignore them too. They aren't approved for preaching. So it's not sexism, although it's been used for sexism. But instead, in a time where there's like water is scarce and there's no supplies and there's no government and it's general anarchy, and low maintenance males are walking around spreading this word, that's not anti-female. It's just the fact of the matter is that females need more resources for good health and care. That's all there is to it. I mean, it's just practicum.
Right. And in the natural state, as was observed by like, you know, any nomadic societies, women are a liability, especially during menstruation. Sure. They attract predators and things like that, right?
Yeah, all that's true. I mean, I'm not dinging on them. They're amazing. They're beautiful, and we'd all be, you know, we wouldn't be able to have humans without them. So definitely they have their intrinsic values that are greater than men. I'm sorry, they do, but they're not great warriors, and they're not great travelers. They're not good for that.
Yeah, I can see like that from a naturalistic perspective too. I'm gonna
to say that women shouldn't be preaching in that time frame and in that context.
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean forever in all situations.
So there's kind of it sounds like you're saying there's kind of an evolution of a religion, right? Where we can expand upon the ideas that are presented there. It's not necessarily something that has to be like a concrete doctrine.
No, the people have adopted it as a doctrine unjustly because they took the time frame wrong, and it's this idea of that time frame is universal, but it can't be maintained in the text. It's just like, okay, some recognize there's such thing as apocalypsis writings, and several of them, some of them Old Testament, but it's like the Christians read Daniel and took the end times that already happened. Well, they couldn't do that because they're still here on the earth, and obviously end times has not happened. But they may as well have taken it that way because they saw the context and then they took it in the wrong time frame.
Right, which is why what they say the revelation has been imminent for like hundreds of years now, right? Because
well, actually,
the events of Revelation,
with the delivery of the special revelation or written word, people have always thought end times is starting tomorrow because that's the way it reads.
Right. I'm gonna play this video for a couple more minutes. Just feel free to if you hear anything you want to respond to, just go ahead and I'll pause it.
Lovely.
I want to see what she has to say about this for a few more minutes here.
Would wear. While the constellation on the cloak was consistent with the way stars appeared in the sky on December 12th of 1531. People have looked into that.
That's bullcrap.
The Aztecs believed
there is no set pattern for the stars on the cloak. There is no set pattern for the stars of the cloak, and aside from that, the text doesn't even go into that.
Like an astrological anomaly, then.
Well, you could read that way, because where the Bible claims I made the stars also, it should read in the English, I repurposed the clumps of stars, meaning constellations, and then directly after that in Genesis it tells what they're to be used for times and days and seasons. That is to say, a calendar. Now, it's absolutely true that our first calendars, before we had computers and such, were based on the locations of constellations. That's just what we did. Which is why we have 12 months of the year and 12 constellations. That's why.
Of course. We base so much of it on astrological observation and how it does dictate patterns in our existence. Have you debated with SJ before or spoken with her?
I've invited her several times, and she keeps saying, "Oh, as soon as this thing is over, as soon as this thing is over."
Okay. Yeah, I invited her on the channel once as well, and no response. But I saw her on the Raging Atheist channel a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, this seems pretty interesting. But Billy, you're still okay. So I just muted. Put this on for a second.
Sacrificial victims to the god. So the eagle-winged angel-carrying Mary showed the Aztecs that the infant in her womb was the proper sacrificial offering to God. Over 9 million Native Americans converted to Christianity within the next 10 years.
So I think there's something significant about that, as I was bringing up earlier. The fact that the Catholic Church especially, I think, allowed a lot of indigenous peoples, pagan people, to incorporate their own pre-existing beliefs into the faith. So this was something that was permissible during that time, just so long as they went to adhere to the Christian doctrine. Like, you could worship the Virgin Mary all you want as long as it's associated with Jesus, that type of thing.
Yeah, in fact, that is so true. The word Catholic, would you happen to know?
No, I don't know what it means specifically.
It literally means all-inclusive. That's what that word means, and that is so prevalently true, everything that you just said about the Catholic Church, which was the biggest movement in Christianity for a very long time. That the idea of purgatory, which is widely held throughout the Catholic Church now, was actually invented by two Catholic priests or monks, I can't remember which one, who were proselytizing in Ireland. And the Irish said, well, we can't accept your religion because we know that there are fairies in the woods, and those fairies advise us and guide us in life. So they thought about that objection that night, and they came up with, let's say that the fairies are actually your dead ancestors paying off their sins not yet ascended to heaven. And that's how that got invented, by two people, and it was completely situational, and they just pulled it out of their butts.
That makes a lot of. I've always been confused about that idea too. Like the purgatory is like the pre-hell, or like the idea of spirits living on Earth but not being able to fully interact with people, right? Like, and then they can still absolve themselves of sin though, in the spiritual acts is kind of the idea behind that.
Sure, and because they cared about the fairies and felt like the fairies were, true in reality, it was easy to associate that to something that else that was not physically there, but they felt was true in reality. That is their dead ancestry. But now you need a reason why your dead ancestors, this is really it, I'm not kidding you. Now you need a reason why your dead ancestors are stuck here and not in heaven. Well, it's because they sinned. Well, now you want to join the religion to relieve the fairies of their torment. You see? It's anyway.
Yeah, it gives one pause, because like you always think like like, oh, are people looking down on me from heaven and judging my actions? Is like the way it's described in some sects. Like, my grandmother's up in heaven looking down, watching me sin, and she's very disappointed, but that's really like the characteristic of God. There's nothing in there that says that people can do that after death.
I mean, you're completely right that Christians will say things like that. But they have to go against the Bible to say it, and that's the problem that I have with it. If you're going to say you're a follower of Christ because the Bible exists, and you're going to say that the Bible has value, and you're not going to be, obviously guilty of the Texas sharpshooter fallacy and cherry picking, then you have to take all of it as the Word of God, or else it has no value. In which case, the dead know nothing, and I am not a God of the dead. And the ascension into heaven of those who have been lost in the past, and the martyrs, is in the book of Revelation, and it's only in the book of Revelation, saying those under the throne cry out to God, "O God, how long will you not avenge our blood on these essentially murderous heathens?" And he says, well, wait till the rest of you guys are going to be killed, because it happens all at once. You see? So you can't say something like, my dead grandma is in heaven looking out for me. Or for that matter, you can't say Mary. There is no miraculous ascension of Mary anywhere in the story.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any. Well, is there a reference to people becoming angels? Like, because there are angels and then there are the human souls. I don't see the part where they connect the human and people becoming angels.
I do, actually, quite directly. The text says that around God's throne, present tense, living with God, are uncountable. You couldn't count them. Okay? And we do have a head count, and a pretty good over the past 200,000 years of Homo sapiens sapien, of 110 billion total on this planet. So we are apparently countable, because we have a number. So,
but we don't have to die to become.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about.
We don't have to die first to become counted.
That's another topic, another problem with Christianity right there. But let me wrap this one up real quick. So it says in the book of Revelation, chapter 7, verses 9 through 15, it calls them angels. It says they already live with God, although the same book says no ascension from this earth has happened yet. So they're already living with God, right? They are dressed in white, and they went through the great day of the Lord, which are proprietary terms, meaning went through end times accepting Jesus. And if I ask a Christian what kind of an animal goes through end times and accepts Jesus, they're going to say a man on an earth. They have to. Because that's what kind of animal does it, and that's the situation in which they do it. So there's no choice within the text in a continuous reading frame other than to say, you have to say, angels were men on an earth. But end times hasn't happened here. So from which earth? Well, not this one. So yeah, it directly says men on earth become angels. You're muted if you're speaking. Of course, they don't like that, so they ignore it.
Uh-oh.
Is the video not playing?
Oh, I paused it and then I just had a frickin' glitch, so I thought I got shut down, but it's still running.
Yeah. Yeah, you're still live with the video up, from what I can tell.
So she's talking about getting image of the eyes. I was just wondering if you know anything about that, or what are they just talking about, like a picture of the picture? What are the reflections she's speaking of?
I don't know. Let me hear more. I don't know the context of what she's saying right there.
She said she's going to move on to Fatima, so I'll back it up a few seconds, and then if it rings any bells, or if not, we'll just let it go.
Have been awestruck by Mother Mary's eyes, which when viewed under a microscope reveal the highly detailed reflections of at least 13 people.
What?
Let us step over and take a look at Fatima.
Wait,
So,
what did
heavy
they...
what happened at
What
the
do you
very
mean they
beginning
got
of
a
the past
picture
century
of her eyes?
was very heavy.
What the
That's
hell?
what I was wondering. Like, is it a picture of the picture? What eyes?
What the hell is she talking
just
about?
threw that in there.
There's no picture of Mary. There isn't one. There could be a picture of a painting, and there really were 13 people around there when that picture was taken. And the paint could be
Right,
reflective
so what I got-
enough to, I guess.
I've heard about this before. So this is like a mass, what do you call it? Like a mass delusion. Like all these people claim to have seen this thing in the sky at one point, right? And it's documented, but like well, you can see some of the images here. The photography is still pretty low quality. So yeah, where did they get these images from? And then you have like a bunch of paintings and statues, which I think is what she's referring to, these reflections of people.
Right.
But this is pretty easily debunked by just mass hysteria and mass delusion.
Sure. Like I said, it's already in the text. They already thought they should think of it this way, and then they saw it the way they thought they should. That's confirmation bias.
Yep. Absolutely.
Persecutions. Let me check something. I want to say hi to people in the chat. Hi, Christian Resistance, Steve Raval, and Jesse Camping, and HW. Interesting. Quite interesting. And so that is the bottom line right there. Think about what was going on in the early 1900s. Heavy Catholic persecutions resumed from one overthrow of the centuries-old Portuguese monarchy of October 5th, 1910, by a new government that aimed for the Roman Catholic Church's collapse. They eliminated religious instructions in schools, expelled religious orders, annulled religious holidays, boarded churches, and killed many clergy. When World War I broke out in 1914, Portugal allied itself with the English and committed its military operations to Germany. It was within this unstable and hostile environment that a young girl called Lucia and her two cousins Francisco and Jacinta lived in Fatima, Portugal. The Blessed Mother Mary visited the children 6 times on the 13th of each month between May 2017 and October 2017. Actually, with one exception. In August, the children had been kidnapped from a very evil person who threatened to boil them in oil. They refused to recant, but he held them, so they were unable to see Mary on August 13th. Fortunately, right after they were released, she appeared to them again. Each time she revealed secrets.
All right, so this is a Wikipedia search, but I see the Miracle of the Sun, October 1917, also known as the Miracle of Fatima, attended by a large crowd who had gathered in Fatima, Portugal, in response to a prophecy made by 3 shepherd children, who she just referenced.
Yes.
The prophecy that the Virgin Mary would appear and perform miracles on that date, and newspapers published the testimony from witnesses who said that they had seen extraordinary solar activity, such as the sun appearing to dance or zigzag in the sky, careen towards the earth, or emit multicolored light and radiant colors. According to these reports, the event lasted approximately 10 minutes. So, like, they predicted some astrological phenomenon, and people thought this was a confirmation.
Yes. Okay. The farthest I can go with this is that the kids had the right idea of time, at least by the day, right? So if I give them if I'm most gracious as I can possibly be, then I can say something like, whatever reason, these kids had an idea that in the near future there would be some weird solar activity or weird activity in the sky. And that's the best you can do, right? And I'm not gonna start, appealing to ignorance by saying, well, that's just guessing. I don't know what would cause the kids to have that idea, and I can't show it, right? But did they see Mary or Jesus or God appear in the sky, and without talking to each other were able to draw it, and everybody drew the same thing? Well, no, we don't have anything like that. Do solar anomalies happen? Dude, the atmosphere can do really weird stuff like that because of a solar impact. A coronal mass ejection can cause very strange anomalies and electrical activity in the atmosphere during an impact. So, of course, you could get a picture if you were standing around waiting with cameras, which this kind of a crowd, somebody's got a camera, right? Even that long ago, and in a place that's not wealthy. So they got a picture of the sun looking funny. Okay. But solar impacts do stuff like that. And since this is not a time in the world where there was sensitive electronics, in fact, I would think that the camera that is being operated here was completely mechanical and would not fail because of electrical interference.
And as she mentioned, I think this is during the height of World War I, right? So, I believe much of South America was on the wrong end of that engagement, right? So this could be like a somewhat political revolution as well.
Interesting.
All right, we'll go on a little bit further here.
Prophecies and truths that included the threat of Russia to the world, the end of World War I, and the potential for another great war if people remained astray. Her appearances on the 13th culminated in October when she revealed great miracles through the sun in the sky to around 70,000 onlookers, which included believers and non-believers alike. She also revealed that she would soon be calling Jacinta and Francisco.
I was incorrect about that. Now, Portugal was aligned with the Allies in World War I. I just looked that up. So
I thought she just said that they were they were part of the support of Germany.
No. Actually, I just found it. Germany declared war against Portugal, so they might have messed them up. They said they lost like 12,000 troops, including Africans who served in its armed forces on the colonial front. Yeah, not to get too deep into that, but civilian deaths in Portugal exceeded 220,000. So yeah, they got pretty well devastated by it. Yeah.
Wow. And now I want to ask if this could have been some kind of an air blast from a military operation. And would Germany even admit they'd done something like that?
Right. Yeah. That's certainly a possibility.
Actually, I should say that Jesus would soon be calling Jacinta and Francisco to heaven to be with him and her. Notice that when wise men look for Jesus, he can still find him with her. So she called that they would soon be going to heaven. But Lucia would remain for a while longer to share her words. Francisco and Jacinta died in 1919 of the Spanish flu, while Lucia became a nun and lived to be 97 before passing in 2005. In Sister Lucia's book, Called from the Message of Fatima, she recounted many of Mother Mary's messages. Here, I'm going to go ahead and tell you some of them because they have to do with some very important things.
The logical problem that I have with this is the same logical problem I have with the fulfillment of the prophecies in the New Testament coming from the Old Testament. The story was there and you could write it. You know, it's easy right now, or even just 2 years after those two kids died, for them to write something like, oh, this was prophesied by the Virgin Mary, you know, back when they were 7 and 6 years old respectively, or whatever, right? It's real easy to write something like that. Do we have anything at all? I mean, they had cameras. Certainly they had writing scribes, other people that could have written this down and dated it, preferably non-religious people who wrote it down and dated it and took record of that the kids had said they were going to die.
Well, and from everything I just read kind of points to exactly what you're saying, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. There was already war, there was already famine, there were already mass deaths from Spanish flu. So they're looking at like Revelation saying war, famine, death, yeah, disease, got it. Yeah, it's all like here in the book. And so they could just put two and two together and be like, we're in the end times. That's what it read to them. But again, this is World War I, you know, so
Sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
End times didn't happen, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it did for them, unfortunately, but you know, that's the way things go.
Her message is on the rosary. Here's what she says: the Most Holy Virgin in these last times in which we live has given a new efficacy to the recitation of the rosary to such an extent that there is no problem, no matter how difficult it is, whether temporal or above all spiritual, in the personal life of each one of us, of our families, that cannot be solved by the rosary. There is no problem, I tell you, no matter how difficult it is, that we cannot resolve by the prayer of the Holy Rosary.
Can you pause it?
Since we all need to pray, God asks of us with a kind of daily installment, a prayer, which is within our...
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so you probably didn't catch this, but I read Bible, so I did catch something that was in that letter. The phrase, these last days, specifically is talking about end times.
Right.
So I'm just confirming what you'd already said.
Got you. I was going to say, in response to the significance of the rosary or any type of religious symbology, like one of the videos I was watching earlier was kind of saying, well, you have a weak faith if you need to display it on your hat or on your head or whatever it be, you know, like a necklace.
Sure.
I used to carry a rosary as a kid, even though I wasn't like really Catholic.
Right.
But I always like felt it was like the crystal healing power or something. Just by rubbing it, it would comfort me. You know what I mean? What do you think about like religious symbolism like that?
Well, first I want to talk about the rosary specifically. See, what the Bible reads is, "Be not like unto the heathen, who thinks they'll be heard for much repetition." So the Bible directly speaks against repeating standardized prayer. It directly says don't do that. That's hedonistic. And yet the Catholics will pray the Our Father and Hail Mary and however many iterations of it for repentance of whatever sin and blah, blah, blah. Bible says don't do that. And it's, I mean, it's not very subject to my interpretation. It's pretty direct. And then as far as iconography is concerned, in most occasions, the reading frame for the Bible has been taken from a spoken tradition, and then it became written, and now it's dogmatic. So if you want to go to a Catholic church, you can't go in there and say something like, the Trinity is three gods. You can't do that. They'll put you in a reform program, and if that doesn't work, they'll kick you out. But it's evident in the text, in the reading frame that the Catholics have adopted, that's describing three gods, actually maybe five, because then you have Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and then in the center of that God, and then separately you have the angel of God, which is not the Father, nor is it the Son, nor is it the Holy Ghost. So that's actually like five gods.
Right.
You know,
and the Mother Mary, if you count that in there. So
well, now you've got six gods.
Right.
So, and where does that end exactly? I don't know. Is Jibril a god? Is Michael a god? You decide. But it doesn't make any sense in the claim of monotheism, which the text claims monotheism. You just can't have all this stuff.
One thing that reminds me of when you're talking about prayer is the especially Catholic ritual of praying over every meal. What do you think about that? Is that kind of just a frivolous thing, or if somebody were to poison your drink, would the prayer absolve you of the effects of the poison?
So no, and it's not intended to. Biblically, it's not intended to. Now people can think whatever they want, and they will, and they'll think everything possible, actually. But what the text says about prayer is Jesus' prayers will be answered. That's what it says. Because you can't read Psalm 139 and say, and this the Father speaking, I will give the angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. They will bear you up in their hands to keep you from dashing your foot against a stone. And yet Christians are murdered in back alleys and die of cancer and car accidents and every other way. So they're obviously not preserved. These promises are not to the religious practitioner. These promises are to the Christ. Now, when you read the story of Christ, do all of his prayers get answered? Yes. Everything he wants for, he could call down angels, 10,000 of them, if he so desired, and he is preserved for a certain thing. He doesn't die accidentally or by a back alley stabbing or some silly stuff like that, or a disease, but he's preserved for the crucifixion. So all of the promises there evidently are true in the life of Christ and are not true in the Catholic, for instance, but all of the Christians. So who can the promises be to? To the Christian, where it's not fulfilled? I don't understand why the heck you would say God's perfect plan and I'll pray so that he changes it.
Yeah, bit of contradiction there.
Yeah, just a huge glaring one. That's all. It's no big deal.
For sure. We'll do a few more minutes of this. I don't know if we want to endure the whole video, but we'll see what.
I mean, isn't that really ironic that they do that? Like
it is like it's so much. Like I was just watching a Phil Talk video where he was asking them, well, if God created everything in the universe, did he not create sin? And they just could not straightforward answer the question. It's like, dude.
Many Christians will bite the bullet and say that Satan is a servant of God created by God to cause us suffering, to test us, to see if we stay true to God.
See, and that I can accept. If you could say it, but these guys just could not. There were three of them just trying to dance around this question, man.
It's a good
Kills
question,
me.
Danny. Good job.
In our reach, the rosary, which can be recited either in common or in private, either in church, in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament, or at home, either with the rest of the family or alone, either when traveling or while walking quietly in the fields. A mother of a family can say the rosary while she rocks her baby's cradle or does the housework. Our day has 24 hours in it. It is not asking a great deal to set aside a quarter of an hour for the spiritual life, for our intimate and familiar converse with God. Here's what she said about hell. Now, some have found this rather fearful. St. Lucia often emphasized the reality of hell because she was given a terrorizing vision of hell on July 13th of 1917. Here's what she said. Let us all willingly endeavor to follow
So
the path
exactly 3 months before her vision? Is that what happened?
No, the whole hell. I want to predict what she's going to say hell is, because it's going to be the Christian tradition, non-biblical. I just know it.
Now let's see.
that he has mapped out for us. Yes, because it was out of love that God sent us this blessing call from his mercy in order to help us along the way of our salvation. Still quoting, as Our Lady spoke these last words, she opened her hands once more, as she had done during the 2 previous months. The rays of light seemed to penetrate the earth, and we saw, as it were, a sea of fire. Plunged in this fire were demons and souls in human form, like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, floating about in the conflagration, now raised into the air by the flames that issue from within themselves, together with great clouds of smoke, now falling back on every side like sparks in huge fires, without weight or equilibrium.
Wow, I just looked this up, and somebody has artistically recreated the vision in this letter, and it's just terrifying.
Yeah.
You have seen hell where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wishes to establish in the world devotion. Oh, man.
Shrieks
I'm telling
and groans
you, they're
of pain
what is it,
and
sadistic
despair,
or
which
masochistic,
horrified us
whichever.
and
Yeah, a little bit both. Definitely. Like if you can envision yourself going to this place, and I mean, I've actually, pictured myself, dying in a number of horrific ways, including burning alive. Like if you can really perform that thought experiment, you're just like, wow, you have to be a true masochist. What? I'm gonna pull these images up.
and made us tremble with fear. It must have been this sight which caused me to cry out, as people say they heard me. The demons could be distinguished by their terrifying and repellent likeness to frightful and unknown animals, black and transparent like burning coals. Terrified, and as if to plead for succor, we looked up at Our Lady, who said to us,
It's gonna take me just a second. I'm gonna pull this up.
so kindly and so sadly.
Yeah, it is a pretty standard definition of burning, and oh yeah, they've even got an animated version. Oh yeah, we're doing this.
Oh, great. A good portion of this comes from Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And he's got the 7 circles or 9 circles, various hells for different degrees of sinners, I guess, or just going through the motions of
Yeah.
It's just 1 minute where they've animated this.
Let me
Hopefully
comment.
it comes up.
Let me comment on this entire assertion from the Bible. Okay, so the Bible directly says, and I'm not expecting anyone to believe it, but this is what it reads of itself: is that the oceans get removed during end times, okay, It literally says, and there will be, or was, no more sea, meaning oceans. And no island could be found. What's an island? It's a mountain with water all around the base. That's an island. So if you took away all the water, of course there's no island. It also says the mountains will melt like wax. Well, okay. What would happen if you removed all of the great water bodies off of this planet? And I do mean all of them. Well, first, you're going to get crazy crustal shift, because some stuff's going to want to go down and seabed's going to want to come upward because you just removed a bunch of weight from it, right? And what do the oceans do? Aside from put moisture in the air and support sea life, they also, the currents of salinization and desalinization, move the temperature, the cold from the poles and the heat from the crust and from the lower mantle all over the planet, which keeps solid the crust. And without oceans, you would have nothing but the chewy, gooey nougat center of Earth all the way to the outside of it. So they say they're going to remove the seas, the oceans. That would cause huge earthquakes, volcanoes to erupt everywhere, and the melting of the crust. It really would. Now, could I say that a magma planet is a lake of fire? Well, gosh, actually, that's pretty easy. What's that got to do with hell? It's got nothing to do with hell. In fact, in the Bible, it's Michael and the other archangels who make this happen.
Yeah, and it all appeals to naturalism. Like, as we discover more about that, like the water is part of the Earth's like the cooling system, the regulatory system that sustains,
Sure.
The fact that we can have life. And yeah. Okay, so they made a movie out of this apparently in 2020, which I didn't even know. But this is, I guess, the preview for the movie coming soon to theaters.
Christians are sick, man. I'm telling you.
So I guess this one's already out. This is a minute. Let's watch this trailer here.
What was that? That was hell, where the sinners' poor souls go.
Mary showed the children a vision of the greatest gift we all have, our free will. God sets before us life and death, good and evil. We are given what we choose. She showed the children what happens to souls who choose evil. She warned of a more devastating war. She showed an angel with a flaming sword about to strike the earth. But she also gave the remedy to avoid this. Stop offending God. Live his commandments.
Okay.
Fatima is an uplifting story about the power of faith, coming soon to theaters nationwide. Learn more about this message of hope and peace for our times at bluearmy.com.
Bluearmy.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Just could not resist when I saw that.
First of all, I want to know why Mary scares kids instead of adults. I'd like to see that justified. I'd like to know why it fits Dante's Inferno and why it doesn't fit the text of the Bible, but it does fit church doctrine. I'd like to know why Mary was Spanish. That makes no sense.
Well, I've heard this theory, before. I see Germanius was in the side chat. It was a couple minutes ago. What's up, Ger? We're just talking about the end times. No, I've heard a theory. No, I don't think it wasn't it's not the Virgin Mary, but the other Mary, Jesus' mistress, who supposedly fled Jerusalem by way of Spain or something. Have you heard that before?
Yeah. No, go ahead. I mean, I've got critique of it already, but go ahead.
Well, that's the most I really remember of the theory. I've heard this before, though. Mary Magdalene, it's her name, Mary Magdalene, and
she was pregnant when she ran away.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Of course.
And yeah, carrying the lineage of Jesus with her, I guess.
Yeah, which is of course a holy lineage, and some guy claimed this because he is one of the direct descendants of Jesus Christ, the rightful leader of all churches all over the planet, and in fact, until Christ's return, king of the planet. I mean, let me just throw that out there. Oh my God.
So, like, even though Jesus was celibate, he had a wife, right? Or at least a mistress. Yeah.
Actually, you'd be going against the Bible to say Jesus was celibate.
So it doesn't actually say that.
No, it never directly says that, but it does mention this woman, Mary Magdalene, which means she was important enough, like the apostles were important enough to name them, right? The Bible only names major characters, right? So what the text says is, well, let me just run you through some quick logic. Do dead people give birth to babies?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so you can't in all rationality say that someone was born of physically dead people, but if you said they were born of the dead, what would that mean biblically?
That they were only born in spirit? Or no,
what does it say about the group that they're born out of?
I'm confused. Well, they would. So they're just saying that their predecessors are dead.
Nope, you can't be born of dead people. That doesn't work. How about this? Spiritually
I'm
dead.
so confused.
Now, if the Bible says someone's spiritually dead, it means they don't believe in the correct God. They're a pagan or a heathen. They're of the nations. They're goyim. So what it actually reads is that Jesus is born out of the goyim. Well, the goyim are non-believers. You think he was a believer and they weren't? Of course he was a non-believer.
Right, which is why his parents would have been Jewish while he himself was the first Christian, right?
No, it does not say they are Jewish.
The kind of contradiction there.
It doesn't say they're Jewish, not at any point. That's an assumption Christians make.
I guess that we just presume it because they're from Israel. Or, yeah, right, because they are Israelites.
No, they are not Israelites. They're in the area and they have to go to the census and things. But it never speaks of their religious alignment.
I'd never considered that before. I guess you just kind of presume that it's a Jewish culture, but yeah, that's an assumption, right?
Sure. The fact of the matter is, the word Nazareth means walled city, and the place called Nazareth not only doesn't have a wall, but in the time that Christ should have been from Nazareth, it was actually predominantly Islamic, and the Muslim took it by force, and they killed off and oppressed the Jews. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense that way. If you're gonna, I mean, you take these words and you really look into the history of this, none of this works.
Yeah, a lot of contradictory history. Oh, no, it's making me do this. Try our premium subscription for free. Sorry, I was trying to pull up this image. I thought it was already on the screen. I think this one's great. She's like tugging at his robe. He's like half naked. And say what's up to Godless Sewing. So do you think, okay, so is Mary Magdalene, like, what is her role in the story? I mean,
Well,
there's lots of conflicting information.
Well, what the text says about the priest, he's got to have both testicles. He can't have a hunchback. He can't have a crooked nose. I mean, it's saying he's a really healthy dude. Now, you take a really healthy dude that was raised by non-believers, and you set him free as an early adult or pre-adult into early and say to about 32 years of old, to 32 years of age. You set that guy free in society. What do you think he did? he's got this girlfriend. She's a whore. I mean, come on, guys. You think he wasn't hit? You think Jesus wasn't hitting that? Grow up.
Been there, done that. Yeah. But it also says what she cleansed him, or no, he cleansed her of her demons. Probably
Sure,
implying
Jesus
that he
cleanses
cured her of a
everyone.
physical disorder.
No, but Jesus cures every one of their demons. That's his whole thing. That's what he does.
Did he cure her with sex though? Do you think
No,
he could cure her with the act of sex?
No, you can't justify that from the Bible. I mean, you could say maybe, but yeah, you can't get that out of the text.
All right, and one thing that occurs to me is if marriage is so important in the biblical narrative, why is Jesus never married?
Right, because he's an apocalyptic preacher that has to travel. That's why.
Oh, so he kind of knows it's already like a short life on the road, so we're not even going to go with commitment here. Like, I'm just committed to
Right, that would be
preaching.
lying. Now, having sex with somebody, that'd be one thing, but committing to them and saying something like, let's get married, that'd be out of the question. You just don't do that.
It says the canonical Gospels attest that she witnesses Jesus' crucifixion and burial, and she stood by the cross near the Virgin Mary and an unidentified apostle who Jesus loved. And she was one of those who went to find the tomb of Jesus to anoint his corpse, but found it empty.
Godless sowing, with all due respect.
I wanted to see if there's anything. There's no more.
Sorry, we got a bad delay.
No, go ahead. Sorry, it's my end.
Godless sowing. What is actually made up is not my view of the text, but just like that certain parts of the text involves people who never existed, towns that never existed, governors who never existed. We know that. They're using some actual history and some made up history to tell a story. What I'm trying to do is tell you the story and never mind the made up and actual history. That part's kind of irrelevant. So yeah, there really is a town called Bethlehem, for instance, but what those Hebrew words mean is house of bread. Now, you don't name a city house for obvious reasons, unless there's some more important house that you're naming it out after. So there was something called the House of Bread, which is bigger, more established, and predated Judaism. In fact, all of that, whole, even into like Paleo Hebrew, and that's the constellation Virgo. The House of Bread. That's its actual name, Virgo being a nickname for it. So the word Bethlehem actually refers to the feminine provider, the virgin with the sheaves of wheat, the constellation Virgo, and its grounding in what it means to the people as a provider, as in Mother Earth. But Christians would tell you that's super pagan. But that is what it's referring to.
So, and it sounds like you're, in your view, for the most part, where we can reconcile the pagan beliefs with monotheism. Like, there's some legitimacy to all these ideas. We just have to find the path to the most reasonable interpretation, like with modern understanding, right?
I'd go further than that by one step. I would say that if there were a God and that God were benevolent, it couldn't be prejudice. If it can't be prejudice, it can't show favoritism. The only way it could be truly benevolent is if it told every people group around the planet the truth when they were ready for it. Say they became good enough gardeners and they were good enough sheep herders or whatever, that they had a half an hour to sit down every day and talk about this stuff, and they were given a religion. Of course, by the time you get to that point in your society's development, you have social structures, you have value systems. This is important, this ain't. And what that would require is that the story were told differently to every people group, which is what we see. But even in comparative religion, we recognize that there is a lot of overlap. You know, that's how we can have comparative religion, because they're comparable. So it's evident to me that a benevolent God, claiming all of the earth and all the people of that earth, gave each people the same story in slightly different ways. So I'm not saying that you can trace Christianity back to paganism, thereby it's false. I'm saying everyone's known the truth from the start, including the pagans.
So this is kind of a rough interpretation, but God is kind of a Marxist, like each according to his ability, like that type of thing.
Sure. Well, I mean, you don't give a 10-pound, a 40-pound kid a 100-pound load to carry, because they just can't carry it, you know. But when people got to a certain stage of development, they became a cooperative and progressive enough that they could receive their religion. And if you look back in the history, the actual history of each of these peoples, that's when they got their religion. It really is.
Makes sense with some human intervention. Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
Oh, I'm okay with that.
Well, going on like 2.5 hours. I should probably figure out a way to class, find a classy way to wrap it. We got into the weeds with SJ there, and I know we both think her views are a little kooky, so we agree on that.
I don't mind kooky, because I'm not allowed to object, because as Godless pointed out, I am extremely fringe. Like, I've never even heard of somebody saying this stuff or looking at it this way. So yeah, I'm a total weirdo. I can't object to somebody being a weirdo, but I can object to them saying things that are evidently non-scriptural. And I understand what the scriptures are referring to in, like, the Guadalupe. That's the Mother Earth. It's not Mary. So I know they're objectively wrong about that, because I've actually looked into this stuff.
But we can also see how, like, the source of these children in a war-torn, country experiencing a pandemic, of course they would interpret Revelation a certain way. Like, it only makes sense.
Sure. It's totally justifiable in human nature. Yeah, but it just can't be what the text is talking about.
Right. Okay. Well, I also have, I think, your debate with Jill somewhere in my upcoming to watch videos.
Save yourself the pain, brother. Just don't do it. Just let that one go. Just let it go.
All right, I'll delete it as soon as we get out of here. Do you have anything else upcoming you want to chill out, Richard? Or
well, I'm always doing something. I don't know if you know who Certainty Exists JG is.
Yeah, I just became familiar with him. Yeah.
Okay. So he likes my argumentation style, and he thinks I at least come off as rational, even though it may not be true. I come off that way. So he's invited me to start doing debates on his channel, which the first one that we did, I participated in that he arranged and moderated was with Jill, and it was an absolute catastrophe. I couldn't be more disappointed in myself and in Jill. I couldn't be. But what I would like is real interlocutors who have some amount of modesty and education and openness and honesty. That would be excellent. If you know people who are interested in debating at the level that you and I just reviewed this video, at that kind of a level, because that's where I'm at, that they've really looked into these things and they want to debate them, I would love to have actual debates with people on JG's channel. So if you can send people my way, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including Godless Sewing. Godless Sewing's real bright. I'd argue you.
Oh, you never know. He might. I don't know. Will, I've never seen Will in debate, but I know he does like to argue a bit. So there's a possibility. Yeah, I will definitely direct people that way. And speaking of which, if you're not and you're here, subscribe to Demolished Doctrine on YouTube. Richard, you're always a pleasure to talk to for me. I mean, I know you may frustrate some of the theists out there, but
well, you know what the difference is? You're actually honest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I try. For me, I will be dropping a little video I did earlier of me rambling about stuff that's going on. Mainly about whether I should become romantically involved with a Christian woman, but that's for another time. I guess we'll leave that one be.
Okay.
And I'll be doing another one of these before Christmas. Then I'll probably be taking about a week off from YouTube, just so everyone's aware out there. Go check out the Patreon. Everything's free on Patreon this month through New Year's. So encouraging that. Please consider subscribing. Thank you, Richard, for coming by. Godless Sewing, Germania, everybody else, past, present, and future. And I will bid y'all adieu. Richard, we could chat in the back if you're free, or...
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hitting the button and broadcast now.